Welcome to Crushing 1L, a podcast about how to die like you're living. Isn't it live like you're dying? Hashtag Tim McGraw. Anyway, I'm Abhi, a 1L at Penn Law, and that's Aaminah. She's a 1L at UCLA Law. Welcome back, Aaminah. You welcomed me back to the last episode, so I'm
I
welcoming
did.
you back to this one.
Thank you. I feel so welcome.
Yeah, I feel like I'm also welcome. So welcome to me too. First topic today, Aaminah. Hey, we got to the end. First semester wrapping up. We do both indeed have a final exam tomorrow. So
Tomorrow,
for
yep.
context, we're recording this on Sunday. Our first finals are on Monday.
Yeah.
So sad. But so glad. So sad, but so glad because we made it. We made it to the end.
hmm Yeah.
Any thoughts to share?
I think it's it's funny. I think interestingly, our exams are in reverse order, and I think it sounds like well, actually, I don't know that, but I have torts tomorrow. You have Civ Pro, and then my
Yeah.
last exam is Civ Pro. I don't know what your last exam is.
Torts. So in
So
fact, in
there is.
reverse order. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it works well for us both because I feel the most ready to take towards, and it sounds like you're the most ready to take Civ Pro, which is
Yes.
nice. Um, Outside of that, like it's anybody's guess what's gonna happen after that. I really have had to like just make my peace with like how things are gonna go this exam season, and yeah,
It could really be anybody's game. And you
yeah,
love to see that going into the fourth quarter. I think that makes games more fun to watch. I think if it was
mm,
a blowout, it would be not fun, right? So, yeah, it could be anybody's game. Us, could be the exams that win. Unclear.
yeah,
But we're gonna
definitely.
get through it. Then we're gonna be home for Christmas, and life's gonna be good.
Yeah, I keep thinking back to like when I turned in my memo after like right before Thanksgiving and just like the feeling of like whoa, like it was literally like emerging from like
A
a
cocoon.
cloud of darkness, and I was
Yeah,
like whoa, like this is so cool, but then I was plunged right back in going
yeah.
into finals, which is not fun. So I'm like holding on to that feeling that we talked about it, like that wonderful day I had on Wednesday. I'm like holding on to the feeling of that day coming 2 weeks from now once the finals are over.
Yeah, you had it was like a picturesque. It was like out of a movie. Like the sunlight was streaming through your
Yeah,
window. You had
it
your
was
book open.
awesome.
You were listening to a nice jazz record. So, yeah, like that could be your December after your last exam,
Yeah,
and then part of your January too.
speaking of Decembers, another thing I've been thinking is just that if I had to suffer through this exam period, like how horrid it would be for me to have to suffer through that in the cold. Like I'm talking over here, like coldest it's getting is like 40s, and by midday it's in the 70s. If I had to go through the snow and this pain, I don't know that I could make it. How are you faring, Obi? Is it snowing where
Yeah,
you?
it hasn't like properly snowed in Philly yet. We've gotten a couple of like really light, like almost a cold rain, a sleet, a flurry, if you will. So
Mhm.
no snow yet. It's not going to be a white Christmas as far as I can tell. But hey, I mean, there's a lot of days until the 25th. It is cold as balls. It is absolutely cold. It's cold as all hell.
Yeah.
And but it didn't get properly cold until like the last week of November or the first week of December. So we actually had a pretty mild fall. It was kind of nice. And then it got cold out of nowhere. I love the cold, I will say. I love
Okay.
like walking to school every morning and just getting my face absolutely blasted off by the wind.
Wow.
So that's fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it really wakes you up. It really does wake you up.
Yeah, I am not on that train. I very much dislike the cold, which is something I didn't even realize how much I'm not into the cold, like, until I've been like, we don't really like run the heat here in my apartment because we just don't. But like, I have a space heater that is like constantly running, and I'm like, it's not even cold enough to really justify the use of it, but like, it just makes me feel better to feel warm rather than to feel cold.
California people, what can you do?
California people. But anyway, I digress. That's going into finals. That's our wrap up of the semester. Well, our little brief baby wrap up of the semester. Things are
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, things are moving. And we so like our second topic is going to be finals today. Are you doing anything in particular to study just for all the listeners, the other 1Ls that are listening, they might commiserate, or the 0Ls that are kind of, hoping to live vicariously through you? Do you have anything you want to share? Any comments, tips?
It's really practice exams, I think. Like it, doing the studying, it can feel very overwhelming in terms of like the outlines and all that because it's a whole semester's worth of information. Like it's very overwhelming. But you know, doing practice exams has reminded me, like, yes, we need to, like, as much as we can be able to recall the information over the course of the semester, but, like, there's only so many things, like, they're gonna test you on an exam, like, you
Yep.
know? Um, yeah, like, I know for my towards exam, 100% there will be battery, and if there's battery, there's almost certainly, well, if, but, like, because there's battery, there's almost certainly going to be a soul. Oh, definitely, we're gonna have a question about, product liability, like, I just those things are gonna be on there, and, like, I'm ready to answer those questions, you know? But I know that because I was doing practice exams, and they just kept popping up, so I think that's really, like, as much as you can, like, practice exams is really the way to go.
Yeah, and I think practice exams really exemplify that all of the topics we learned end up being consolidated into one or two rule statements that you clump together to address bigger problems, like bigger issues. So, like for example, in Civ Pro, you know you're going to get an Erie problem, right? So all of like the dozen cases you read leading up to Erie, things like international shoe to establish minimum contacts, and then all the cases that go with minimum contacts and specific and general jurisdiction, all of those are like half a line or one line, and you have to use them as chess pieces to answer bigger questions about something like Erie, which doesn't really even have an answer. Or another thing that we everybody knows is going to be on a Civ Pro exam is like a summary judgment call, right? Like the exam's going to ask you, hey, like should this motion be dismissed, or or not motion, should this claim be dismissed via 12b6? Should the court grant a summary judgment on this? And so all of the cases that you read throughout the semester, you're like, oh, I can like put them into these buckets that I'm going to pull from to answer these broader questions. So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's all about zooming out and looking at the forest rather than trees. And like I would say, be confident that you actually probably do know the trees. Like in fact, with how word limits and time limits work, you actually probably know too much information. And it's actually the art of consolidating your knowledge into a way that's clear and concise and that clearly communicates what you're trying to communicate. So at least in my experience, I've been writing too much, and I actually need to narrow it down.
Yeah, I think, like, um I think on the flip side of that too, like, like, specifically, I'm thinking of contracts, like, I feel like our professor, like, has these really, like, intricate and, like, complicated exams, and that can feel very, like, again, overwhelming when you read it because 'cause you're like, "Ooh, what is going on here?" But, like, I think part of that is, like, some professors write exams they know you won't be able to finish, you know? And so it's like going into that, like, understand that, like, your goal is not to, like, get everything 100%. Like, your goal is to just, like, do the best that you can and get as much as you can. And, like, yeah, just, like, kind of understanding things like that and, like, setting your expectations around that can really help you emotionally deal with it. Like, because I think, like, something I learned from my midterm, like, now preparing for finals, like, I think, like, some of the biggest things that hurt me on my midterms were, like, opening the exams and, like, just having this mental panic, like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this." And I do, and I did. Um, so, like, yeah, going into my practice exams, like, I've been saying that to myself, like, "You know how to do this. Like, don't freak out and, like, shut down immediately. Like, just start with what you can do before you start, like, spiraling about what you don't know or what you can't do," you know? And that really helped me to, like, move forward and do better on those exams and, like, work with the material in a way that was more beneficial to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say don't exams that you can't finish, I think sometimes people think, oh, like you're just going to run out of time and there's going to be so much on the page that you're not going to have time for it. That may be the case. Um, it may also be the case that you're limited on the amount of words you can write. So there is so much stuff in these issue spotters that you kind of have to pick the big ones that you see, and there's going to be stuff you don't see, and you're going to try your best. You're going to spend as much time as you can on it. You're going to write as many words as you can, and then you're going to have to take your hands off the computer and go, okay, well, did my best. And nobody's going to see everything. Nobody's going to get all the points. That's just not how it works. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah. I think, like, that I'm addressing that emotional feeling of it because I think that's something that, like, as high achieving students is can be very, like, jarring of, like, "Oh, I didn't get all the points, or I didn't get 100%, or, like, I didn't get, like, close to all of this information." It's like, yeah, like, nobody did because nobody's supposed to. Like, that's not what this is
Mhm.
about, you know? So level setting can be really helpful in terms of like studying because it's, yeah, puts you in the right mindset.
Something I really appreciate that my civil procedure professor did was he shared the top scoring exam from one of his past years, and he just shared the full exam, and it was the top scoring exam. It was the exam that got the highest grade in the class, and it wasn't perfect. You could point at it and go, "Oh, I would have answered that differently." And
Yeah.
his point was, "Yeah, probably." And there's always something that you might answer a little bit better than somebody else, and there's going to be answers that other people give that are better than yours on certain topics,
Hmm.
and that's just kind of how it goes. So nobody's going to write a perfect exam. We're just going to try our best. Too easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
then
yeah, that's,
that sounds a little defeatist, but I also think like there's an optimism there of you don't have to be perfect to be really good. And I
yeah.
think that's kind of what the law is about. Like none of the motions that you ever file in court are going to be perfect motions, but they're going to get the job done. They're going to help your client. That's what we do.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like I just think it's helpful to know that like the failure that you feel by not being perfect, it's not like you're not
It's not
aiming for
real.
perfect, you're just
Yeah.
aiming for like good amongst the people that you're in.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be fine. I mean, we're gonna crush it. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna crush
Um,
it.
let's transition to a listener question that we got.
Yeah.
And it's also gonna kind of consolidate into our like real life legal drama review that we've been doing.
Yeah, we're moving fast this week, folks. We, as we
We
mentioned, we
are.
do have finals
Yeah.
coming up. But yeah, so last week we talked about trespassing by picking up after your dog on somebody's property. And Ali asked a follow-up question to that. She said, if someone has a little sign that says pick up after your dog on their lawns, is that an invitation to enter the property for that purpose? Honestly, I don't fully know in terms of, like, if that would allow you to be on their property, but I think you need more express permission than a sign that says "Pick up after yourself." And it's funny, after I saw this comment, I was actually, like, walking, yeah, so I was walking back from the park, and I actually saw some signs like the one that you're mentioning, Allie, but interestingly, the language on those signs weren't, like, inviting you to come and pick up after your dog, they were just saying, like, "Don't let your dog on this property for that purpose." So I don't know. I think a sign like that might not actually allow somebody to enter the property to pick up after their dog because I don't think the permission is express enough to like warrant like invitation onto the property. But I'm not a choice
Yeah.
professor. I do not know.
On the other hand, we didn't cover intentional torts, but we did cover unintentional torts, and so there's duties that landowners take onto themselves when they do
Mhm.
open their property up for the public. So if they open their property to the public, then there's no longer you can't be a trespasser because you have been invited you've been explicitly or expressly or implicitly invited onto the land. So there might be an interesting question of usually I see those signs, Amina, in like already public places. So like if you live in an apartment complex and there's like a shared green area, there might be a sign with the little doggy bags on it that says, "Hey, please pick up after your dog." But that's already
Yeah.
common space. It's a shared space. So there's nothing interesting there. Um, I have never seen that on somebody's yard. And so if the sign was like several feet into the yard and it was obviously private property and it had a little doggy bag and it was inviting you to take a doggy bag from the yard and it said please pick up after your dog, I actually think that might be a pretty express invitation.
That's fair. I'm thinking like specifically in terms of like private property, like trespassing onto somebody's private property. But yeah, on public property, there is a bit of a different
Yeah,
standard. Um,
but even if
yeah.
it was private, even if it was a private yard but it had
And
a
yes,
sign, yeah,
with the doggy bag, that's different than just like a sign that's like pick up after your dog.
yeah, because the doggy bag is like come get this doggy bag,
Yeah.
so there's nuance there. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So it
Very
depends, as
cool.
we say in the law, it depends.
It super depends on a lot of stuff. And then sometimes like states will just have different laws for stuff.
Hmm.
So like sometimes states have this distinction between invitees and trespassers and all of this stuff. And then sometimes states are like that's stupid. You're either a trespasser or you're not like you're either allowed on the property or not allowed on the property. So it also kind of just depends on the state that you're in and how they define property law and stuff.
Yeah. That's very true. There's like, yeah, there's a lot of intricacies about like your presence on a property. Um, yeah. And like so strange too, like that some states are like, oh, invitee licensee trespasser, and some states are like, no, like you're either there or you're not. I and you have to address all of them on your exams. So exciting. Looking forward to towards tomorrow. But yeah, that's the complicated answer to your question. I think the simplistic answer, private property on the curb, no, you're not allowed. More of an invitation, like something that signals more of a express invitation, like having a doggy bag, or like, please come onto our property to pick up after your dog if it defecates. Like that might be different. Um, and
Yeah,
public
I would
spaces
just
is just a different rule altogether.
keep your dog leashed and in control when you're near somebody's private property, especially if it's near somebody that you. It's like if there's like an old man Jenkins situation, like the guy from Sandlot, where obviously at the end of the movie he turned out to be nice and friendly, but if you're scared of the man next door, don't let your dog into their yard. That's just bad. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the short and long to your question.
The short and the long of the listener question. Thank you, Ali, and also the legal drama review, folks. I have more TV shows to talk about. I just can't. We just can't talk about them today. But we're gonna do How to Get Away with Murder. We're gonna do Scandal. We're gonna do all this stuff. So we're really excited. Please keep tuning in. We're gonna have some more for you after finals. Aaminah, you flagged something. Speaking of legal drama, uh, in real life, you flagged this article about Kim Kardashian um in the Washington Post,
Yeah.
by Professor Max Raskin from NYU. Wrote an opinion in the Washington Post about Kim K failing the bar.
Yeah, so the conversation about Kim K and the bar continues. This article said, actually, the bar exam failed Kim Kardashian. So that caught my eye because I'm like, how? How did the bar exam fail Kim
How does an
Kardashian?
exam fail an exam taker?
Yeah. And I think the high and low of this article is kind of a conversation that's I think we have a lot in this LSAT demon space actually, is which is like the ABA as like the lawyers guild is maybe not the most efficient, effective way of like training people to be lawyers and like admitting people to practice. And so like the idea here with this article is like I think they mentioned like specifically with the California bar exam, like of like what was it, 7,300, 400, 500 people who took the exam, like half of them failed and for the first time passage rate. And so it's like the idea, yeah, is that like maybe this exam is not properly formulated to really like get people into the practice of law, and maybe the system needs to be changed, especially like with the developments in AI, and how technology is changing the legal practice altogether.
I would actually go further and just concede that the ABA's incentive is not to let people be lawyers. That is the whole point of the guild, and that's kind of what we poke, like Aaminah just said. That's what we poke fun at. It's a guild that protects us. It's a guild that protects lawyers only if you get into the club. It's like the exclusive club helps you if you're in the club. They are
Yeah.
explicitly disincentivized to grow the size of the club. That is the whole point of a union. That is the whole point of a guild. It is to restrict and limit the number of people in the club so that the club can wield power on the industry, the field, the practice of law. So I think the ABA wants to fail applicants. Um,
Well, definitely, yeah.
yeah, but I think, and this is my hypothesis. I mean, I'm not a resident of California, so I will ask you for your opinion here as a hashtag California guy. Um, I think what we're seeing with California particularly, it's an exceptionally low pass rate across the nation. I just pulled up the NCBE pass rates for every state, and I think California is the lowest one I saw. There are a couple of other states in the Midwest that have pass rates in the 60s, but and then Connecticut at 58, and then Alabama at 54. But California is a very large state with a pass rate of 55
Yeah.
overall for the overall bar pass rate for July. So that's really really rough. And what I think is happening, this is my hypothesis. What I think is happening is that the interests of the ABA are conflicting with the interests of the state of California. The
Mhm.
ABA wants to restrict the number of lawyers admitted to the bar. The California bar is making a concerted effort to increase the number of people eligible to sit for the bar. because they're making a concerted effort to create state accredited law schools. They're creating the apprenticeship program so that people don't have to go to a traditional ABA accredited law school in order to be eligible to sit for the bar. So California wants to increase accessibility. The ABA wants to decrease accessibility. And what we're seeing with the low bar passage rate is those interests conflicting.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Like, I think there's definitely something to be said, and I'd be interested to know, like, more like how that plays out with different states that also do state accreditation. Some states that are now moving towards state accreditation and like moving away from the bar. Like, what was it that we talked about? Like Texas
Yeah,
and
I think we covered
Arizona.
Texas on the show, and the Texas Supreme Court said, hey, we want to be the ones to decide who's accredited in the state of Texas. That's not going to be the
Yeah.
ABA's call. Yeah.
Yeah, so, um, but I definitely could see how that might be the case, especially, like, with the differences that those levels of accreditation create in terms of, like, the education and curriculum that students are getting. But yeah, I could see the argument for that.
Yeah, I also think that Professor Raskin is kind of missing the forest for the trees a little bit. I think there's a correlation causation issue here. I think that the more if you are committed to increasing accessibility, which I think the state of California is, I think that you are inevitably going to get people sitting for the bar exam that are less prepared than they should be because you have actually widened the accessibility gateway. So now there's people who do not go to traditional law schools. They don't pass a torts exam their first year. They don't pass a Civ Pro exam their first year. They pass the baby bar, which is
Yeah.
significant. To even sit for the state bar, you have to pass the baby bar in California. But it takes people like Kim Kardashian who have she essentially has unlimited resources. It took her 3 tries to pass the baby bar. So this isn't a question of resources. It may be a question of preparation and legal capability. Um, and that's kind of good. Like it's kind of good that Kim K couldn't buy her way to pass the bar. That's like not that's inequity, right? If you could just throw money at the problem, then that's the exact thing we're trying to avoid. So I don't know if Professor Raskin addressed that in the article very well. This idea of should somebody with all of the resources in the world um, be able to bypass a basic like baseline exam? Like I don't know. It's complicated.
It's complicated, and I think, like, another, like, high level takeaway of this is, like, a lot of people are making fun of Kim Kardashian for not passing as if it's, like, an indicator that this is the indicator that she's unintelligent and incapable of being a good lawyer, and it's like, no, and I think we've talked about this, it's like, the bar exam is very difficult,
It's
like,
hard.
that is why we have law schools that, give you this curriculum,
Yep.
that make you cry when you have to take your torts exam and your sit for fun. I mean, I don't know if you're crying, but like really like put you through the ringer in terms of like learning this material so that like when you get to the bar exam, like you're in a better position to like pass that exam. Yeah, it's not like I don't think it's like an indictment of her intelligence, the way that people are
No,
treating it.
I agree. I think that failing the California bar is not an indictment on anybody's intelligence because it's built to be a test that is hard. Just
Yeah.
like getting a bad LSAT score your first time or two is not an indictment on your intelligence because that's what the test is built for. It's built to like be something hard that you figure out over time. Um, I also think that as you increase accessibility in California legal education, you're going to be admitting students with lower LSAT scores and lower college GPAs, and those things correlate really highly with success on the bar exam. So there's a confluence of factors here. A lot of variables are correlating to produce bar exam outcomes. We shouldn't be so narrow with judging, as you just said. We shouldn't judge this one outcome as causation uh, for any other thing. She's not dumb because she didn't pass the bar. Nobody who failed the California bar is dumb because they didn't pass the bar. They could be dumb for other reasons. I like we should again. I'm not also not concluding that just because you pass the California bar means you're smart. That's not what that means either. So we shouldn't make fun of people for singular outcomes in their lives, just as we hope that other people wouldn't judge us for singular outcomes in our lives. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Kim, for this robust conversation. I'm sure
We
it'll
love you, Kim.
continue.
We're Team Kim.
Um,
I also heard, Amina, that she used ChatGPT to prep, and I don't know if that. I don't have an article to corroborate that. That's a thing I just saw on the internet. Kim,
I
if
mean,
you're
well, we
using
know that she
ChatGPT,
was she was consulting with the stars. She had a psychic, like,
yeah, and I think that's all great. I think instead of, well, maybe not instead of, maybe in supplement of that, you could have come and talked to us. We could have set you up with some pretty decent legal stuff. at Crushing 1L. So I don't know, like if you wanted to brush up on torts or Supra or property or contracts, hey, a $95 subscription to lsatdemon gives you access to everything. So I don't know how much she paid the sidekick, but I think it would have been cheaper than that.
Nice
Anyway,
plug. Very good plug
if
there.
Kim is listening, I want her to know that she has other options.
Yeah,
We're
Kim, we're here for you.
Team Kardashian here on the show.
Yeah,
Cool. Aaminah, we have a luau this week,
we have a luau this
as
week.
we do every week.
As we do. This week's luau is antitrust. Are you familiar with the word antitrust?
I am familiar with the word antitrust, but only very colloquially. I'll be honest. We did read a couple of cases this year in a few classes related to antitrust issues. And what it seems to me, the Antitrust Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, is the statute, the federal statute that regulates, what companies are allowed to do what and how, based on their market share. So those are the words I'm going to throw out there. I think it's market share. I think it's federally regulated company stuff. Am I close?
Yeah, it's pretty much it's just laws that well not just, but they are law antitrust is a sector of the law that regulates monopolies to promote fair competition. And the reason that this luau came up this week, something happening in the entertainment world, is that Netflix, after a competition with Paramount and Comcast, where nobody thought that Netflix would really take the cake. Well, let me not say nobody, but many people thought that Netflix would not really be significantly interested in buying Warner Brothers for a multitude of reasons. Netflix has now announced that they are going to begin this deal to buy Warner Brothers for $82 billion. And some people have come out and said, specifically, I'm thinking of the WGA, the Writers Guild, was like, this is what antitrust laws were designed to prevent against. Do not allow this.
Well, yeah, and what's so funny is that we've come totally full circle, Amina. Warner Bros. Is full of a bunch of legacy assets, including a bunch of cable stuff, and
Yep.
also HBO, which is HBO is kind of considered a legacy asset in a sense. HBO predates streaming, so it's
Hmm.
legacy
Oh my
in that
God,
sense.
yeah.
And so we've come completely full circle where a streaming company is now buying a cable company
Yeah.
to be a cable company. We
Yeah.
reinvented cable from scratch. We have to
Well,
buy all these
yeah.
channels. You have to pay Netflix $40, and you have to pay HBO $20, and you have to pay Disney and Hulu $20. We've just reinvented cable with extra steps, which is sad.
Yeah. It's sad. But yeah, many people do not want this deal to go through for good reason, especially like in terms of like I'm getting into the entertainment side stuff, but like especially in terms of like the preservation of cinema and like movie theaters and movies coming out in theaters, which Netflix has famously been against for many, many years and has famously been undermining pretty much since it started this streaming aspect of its
Yeah,
platform. So it's going
yeah,
to be really interesting to see if this deal goes through and what the ramifications of that are.
like Warner Bros is a movie studio. Like they're an
Yeah.
old school Hollywood movie studio. They still make movies that you go see in theaters. They also happen to own HBO and HBO Max, which is a whole different ballgame. So
Well, that and they have like a bunch of sorry, but they have like a
no,
bunch of
no,
different like franchises and like old movies like Casablanca, like stuff like that, like really important stuff that you don't just want to like disappear.
yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of
Like
like art.
when you
Yeah.
watch those old Harry Potter movies and the Warner Bros logo changes and it gets darker and darker as you get more into the movies, that's Warner Bros, folks.
That's
That's
Warner
WB.
Bros. Yeah.
So
And
sad.
now it's Netflix? Question
Now
mark.
it's Netflix Bros.
But yeah. So that's antitrust. That's our Lowell this week.
Yeah, and so I think if any listeners are interested in like economics and market share and doing that kind of economic analysis, you might be interested in being antitrust attorneys. Antitrust attorneys work really closely with economic consulting firms on deals like this. So I'm sure that Netflix attorneys and Warner Bros attorneys and then also on the other side of the V, right? The free trade the FTC attorneys that work
Hmm.
in Washington, all of these attorneys are probably consulting various consulting firms and economic consulting firms to figure out how do we determine what Netflix's market share is. That's a
Hmm.
hard question, right? Because
Yeah.
they make a lot of weird. They make like the streaming stuff, and then how do you count stream? Like how do you count streaming market share? There's a bunch of economics questions there, and then you also have to ask, okay, and then what would their market share be with Warner Bros? And that's like an interesting economic question of like, how do you do that math, and how do you count market share, and how big is too big? All of these interesting questions. I think in real life, Amina, I think we're going to see our Netflix prices go up because all of a sudden it's going to start
Oh,
coming with HBO.
definitely. Yeah, they're gonna be like, we have more stuff to offer you, so like we need to up the prices.
Right. And then a year or two from
Yes.
now, they're going to say, hey, we're retiring the HBO brand, but we're going to raise the price. And so it's going to like, whatever, it's like $20 now. And then after HBO, it's going to be $30 because it's like, oh, it comes with HBO. And then a year after that, it's going to be $40. They're going to say, and we're killing HBO, and it's all just Netflix. And then it's going to be, that's like the nightmare scenario for like antitrust people, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I feel like when that's not like
It's not that far
not
fetched.
yeah, not far-fetched
No, we've
at
seen
all.
we've seen that. Like we're seeing that with Hulu. Hulu got bought
Absolutely.
by Disney, and now you can't go sign up for Hulu. You have to get a Disney Plus subscription,
Yep.
and it comes in a bundle. And they're like, we're charging more because it comes with more. And then in a year, you're not gonna see the word Hulu anywhere
There's no
because it's gonna
Hulu,
be
yeah.
yeah, right. So we've seen this story before. We've seen this story before.
Yeah, but very, very interesting shakeup in the shakeup, but like that was
Yeah.
just really interesting to me because I listen. I guess I'm a podcast person, so I was listening to a podcast about that. The Town, for those of you who are interested, perhaps interested in entertainment law, like The Town is a really good podcast to follow what's going on in the world of entertainment. And so I was listening to that, and then like to see the developments of that happening. I'm very interested to hear what they'll have to say. I think on Monday, when their next episode comes out.
The
Yeah.
Town, if you ever want to come on to Crushing 1L, we'd be happy to have you. And I think vice versa. I think if you ever want to have Amina and I on The Town, I think we'd be happy to do it. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ami, I think is that it for us today?
I think that's it. Look, a shorter episode today, guys. We intentionally prepped to make this episode a little bit more streamlined because we have some studying to do. But I also think that we covered everything. Do you have anything you want to leave the listeners with this week?
Uh,
Just a deep
something I
sigh.
want to leave you guys with. I don't know. We're gonna do like a bit of a wrap up once finals are really, really over, and like
Yeah.
kind of a high level overview of what the semester was like. Um, but for now, like I don't know where you are, and wherever you are in your journey, like take a deep breath, like life goes on. Life always goes on. Oh, actually, something I will leave you with, like something that is getting me through this this time period. My song of the week. I am like secretly a big Dolly fan. Like I have my water bottle and it has like Dolly. It says, "What would Dolly do?" And so part of that, like I there's a Dolly song called Clear Light of a Clear Blue Morning, and that's something like I just keep on repeat. Like it's yeah. Essentially she was like in a dark space with the whole Porter Wagner thing. This is like Dolly lore, so I'm not gonna get into it, but she was in a dark space in her life. She wrote this song like I'll see the light of a clear blue morning, like, you know, the clouds will dissipate eventually, and like I really hold on to that. So that's what's getting me through this period. And for those of you who are also in rough periods, like you are going to see the light of a clear blue morning. Don't you worry, it's coming.
That's such a nice sentiment to share. This is a
Yeah.
Dolly Parton podcast now, so sorry, folks. No, I was just watching Hot Ones. I was watching the Hot Ones episode with Jeremy Allen White, and
Mhm.
he was like towards the end of the wings, and he was really suffering. And Sean Evans was like, "Are you okay?" And Jeremy Allen White said something that is kind of my clear blue sky thing recently, which is he said, "I'm fine. I'm suffering, but I'm only here right now."
Mm.
And I was like, "Whoa,
Yes.
I'm only here right now." Like that, yeah. Like
Yes.
anytime that you're going through something, you have to remind yourself you're only here right now.
Yep.
So, Sean Evans, if you ever want to have us on Hot Ones, we'd love to. The Hot Ones versus. We should do a hot. We should like order like the little Hot Ones versus and do Hot Ones for one of these episodes.
Leave us comments if you want to see that. Comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Leave
need
us
at least
comments.
five. I'm gonna need at least five comments
5
that
big
say "Do
booms.
it." Yeah, five big booms. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that's a great idea actually.
Sure.
But yeah, Sean, let me know. I'm available. Uh, and Jeremy Allen White, let me know if you ever need like.
Obvious, just anybody who wants Abhi. He's
Dude,
open for
I'm so
business.
available. I'm so available. Okay. That is it for this episode of Crushing 1L. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe. You can also leave a comment right wherever you're watching it, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music or whatever. Actually, I don't think you can leave a comment on Apple Podcasts. So Find us on YouTube and Spotify. Leave a comment there. Or even better, share it with somebody in your life that might be thinking about law school, and we'll tell them, don't go to law school.
Save a life. I'm
Save a
begging
life.
you.
If you have any questions, you can always just leave a comment wherever you're listening, or you could write into the podcast. It's just crushing1l.com. It's just crushing the number one, the letter L.com. Until next time, folks, that's Aaminah. I'm Abhi. Keep crushing it.